Hello and welcome to the C programming lecture on the C standard library. Now this particular lecture is going to be pretty short and we're not going to have a coding example. We're just going to go over some really basic stuff that revolves around the C standard library. There's just no way for me to particularly give you the intuition and all the function names and the ability to use all the different header files. That's something that you got to develop when as a need to know basis basically. So the best way to build up a knowledge of how to use these things is just by creating programs. So instead of me just making arbitrary programs that don't mean anything, I'm just going to introduce some basic useful header files and other segments of the C standard library that will enable us in future lectures to build very basic programs. Okay, so the C standard library is a collection of standardized implemented functions for a specific compiler and platform. Basically, that means that every C standard has a set of functions that are usually guaranteed to be shipped with a particular compiler. So GCC's implementation may be different than Clan's or MSVC's. So all of these different implementations guarantee a particular function to be available. However, that implementation of that function could be vastly different on each platform. So these libraries are either dynamic or static, typically implemented again by the compiler creators, and they're also included in the installation. That's why these things just kind of work out of the box. Due to this, it's common to implement like I said, the implementations slightly vary. This is again despite something called the ANSI or ISO standards being specific and how they should operate. They don't typically tell you exactly all of the implementation details that need to occur inside of the things, just basically signatures and what is expected out of them. So these standard libraries are responsible for interacting with lower level systems. So they're responsible for making operating system calls, and that is what gives the programmers the ability to have their code be more portable on different platforms. Now, a good example of a C program that is incredibly portable and you've probably seen all over the place is actually the video game Doom. So the video game Doom was one of the most portable games available. I mean, you can see it on a vast amount of different devices, and this is because this code was written in a way where it was easily transferred to different types of platforms. So anyways, without getting too thick in the weeds, let's continue on. So here are some basic C standard library headers. So we've been using this one a lot, the stdio. This is just core input and output functions. There's a lot of them. It's one of the biggest files. So stdlib has like a lot of general utility functions, number conversions, pseudo random number generation, memory allocation, process control, and a lot more. So math is just common mathematical functions. Time.h is common functions for handling date and times. String.h is common string handling functions, and a lot of there's a huge amount of these in general. So there's actually two books that I recommend in general to beginner C programmers. There's a C standard book that is excellent that you can find on Amazon, and then there's another one called a reference manual of C, or C a reference manual. Those two books have a vast knowledge of what the C standard library contains, and also the KNR book, which I recommended at the very beginning of this course, also kind of goes into some of the non-system related stuff, but towards the end of the book, they go into more system related stuff. Okay, a brief review. Most C compilers come with a set of standard libraries. These are the things that we've been using. So they adhere to the ANSI or ISO standards, and implementations of these standard libraries will vary depending on the platform and the compiler. Standard libraries interact with lower level systems and offer a certain amount of cross-platform compatibility. So again, I use the example of the game like Doom. We see it in a lot of different platforms, and that is because the way it was coded underneath and how it works. So again, this is a higher level overview of what the standard library has to offer. Don't get caught up into the details. Those two books that I mentioned are fantastic. Definitely pick them up to continue on your journey into the C into C development. The C standard library is a great way to get started just using a lower level language. So thanks for watching, and we'll come up with some better examples here in the future for you to be able to use some of these C standard library functions.